This video will be a character overview and analysis of first Prince Benjamin Huiguro. Initially, I'll provide an outline of the prince, going into his character and personality. I'll then do an overview of his Nen abilities, followed up by an analysis of his guardian spirit beast, GSB for short. Afterwards, a very brief summary of where he is currently in the story will follow, and finally I'll finish up by giving my opinion on how good of a king he'd make were he to win the battle for succession. Let's get into it. First Prince Benjamin is one of two sons of first Queen Unma. Being both the first prince and the son of the first queen means that he is unequivocally at the very top of the princely hierarchy. You see, the Kakin Empire has a strictly hierarchical societal and familial structure. On a societal level, this manifests in the form of an immutable caste system, which I will talk a bit more about when I cover second Prince Camilla. On a familial level, at least with regards to the royal family, this manifests in a strict hierarchy based on marriage and birth order. As in, those queens which have been married to the king longer are ranked higher and thus enjoy rights and privileges not afforded to those queens who married into the family after them. The higher ranked princes are much in the same vein, privileged to the lower ranked ones, depending on a combination of their birth order and how high their mother ranks in the queenly hierarchy, with Prince Benjamin as the first child of the first queen, monopolizing all the privilege points. Apart from his firstborn prerogative, Benjamin is also the deputy military advisor of the royal army, which gives him the unique privilege of his personal guard also serving as royal army officers, making it possible for them to maneuver in ways no other guards can. As far as his personality is concerned, Shimano, Queen Oito's last remaining servant and an excellent judge of character when the princes are concerned, has described him as a cold-blooded individual who would neither change his mind through negotiation nor ever directly speak to a commoner. Furthermore, his way of showing respect to adversaries that remain loyal to their employers or masters is to let them choose how they die, which I'm assuming doesn't include old age. Hell, he may even spare you just for having the guts to try though, or slowly dislodge your guts through your mouth since you're not as original as you think you are, and that's like the third time he's heard the exact same one-liner this week alone. Considering his ability is Hatsu acquisition and accumulation based, similar to Chrollo's, Benjamin is most likely a specialist. If we apply Hisoka's pretty arbitrary Nen type and personality correlation test, his description of specialists as independent and charismatic persons who are always surrounded by many people does mostly track, though I'd argue that Benjamin's much more imposing and intimidating than he is charismatic. Hisoka's, again I have to emphasize, largely arbitrary test describes emitters as impatient, not detail-oriented, short-tempered, and quick to react volatilely, which describes Benjamin to a T. Dude wakes up and chooses violence on a daily basis. Emission also makes sense because A, he was able to tank multiple gunshots from a 9mm pistol only using Ren, i.e. he didn't need to use Gyo to focus his aura in a particular spot to absorb the shots. Dude just tanked them outright. This shows an impressive capacity for enhancement, since apparently, according to Kurapika, Gyo won't be enough to remain unscathed against 9mm Lugers. This coming from the guy who, while barely, nonetheless blocked a punch from a pure enhancer capable of tanking a rocket launcher. I guess he could mean it would literally just break skin, but considering Furyakov took a shot to the face without Gyo and came out with only a superficial injury, I don't think this statement from Kurapika tracks. But that's neither here nor there. Back on topic. B. Emission also makes sense, since transferring abilities from one person to another, especially if they're far away from each other, is something Emission should be more than capable of doing under the right conditions. After all, if a manipulator like Shikaku, one of Benjamin's own men, can create a Hatsu acquisition ability, I see no reason why Benji wouldn't be able to do so through emission. Supposing that he didn't have any abilities already stored up prior to the voyage, Benjamin currently has access to 3 of his soldiers' Hatsu. First is Vincent's Air Blow, Empty Air Fist. While we didn't get to see what it could do, thanks to Kurapika siphoning it off from him as he was about to activate it, we do know that he resorted to it after seeing that 9mm rounds wouldn't be able to pierce Bill's defenses. Supposing it's a purely offensive technique that can be fired off at a distance, I think it's safe to assume that it's an emission-based ability. The second ability is Shikaku's Concept, King of Games. This, most likely emission and conjuration-based ability, allows for Shikaku to acquisition the abilities of others by blocking them and turning them into a card, Greed Island style. Third is Moose's secret window, rear window bird. It is a reconnaissance ability allowing him to either emit or more likely conjure 3 birds with different recon capabilities, out of which we know 2. One is capable of transmitting sound through physical barriers, which he used to eavesdrop on the conversation between Camilla and second Queen Dolezal, while the second one allows him to telepathically spy on someone, palm style, after first fulfilling the condition of making physical contact with them. Benjamin is currently using this to keep tabs on his dear, not at all unhinged little sister, Camilla. One last thing I'd like to quickly mention is a slight oddity regarding his ability. The 4 stars on Benjamin's palm indicate that he can store up to 4 acquisitioned abilities at once. The first time we see the stars on his palm, we see only 3, with his little finger covering the leftmost star. In that panel, we see the second and third stars ablaze with Nen, corresponding to the 2 fallen guards referenced at the time, Moose and Vincent. Then, later on, when Benjamin confirms that Shikaku has indeed died due to him having received his Hatsu, the first star on his palm is ablaze, implying it corresponds to Shikaku's ability. It's probably not important, though this is Togashi we're talking about, so you never know. I just found it odd that the stars wouldn't sequentially represent the Hatsu of his fallen soldiers. I heavily doubt they're preordained, since he seemingly has only 4 slots available. It's arguable how much Benjamin would be able to benefit from a slow burn ability like Rihan's Predator, so it's possible he selects which Hatsu he'll acquire ahead of time, based on how much he deems it useful to himself, while also hinging his bets on which of his soldiers is most likely to die next. As mentioned, I may very well be overthinking this, but that's the name of the game. Or at least the channel. Moving on once again, Prince Benjamin's GSB is one of the 2 we know essentially nothing about. Appearance-wise, there are 2 primarily emphasized morphological features, the super bulky legs and the massive mouth, which takes up most of its face. Apart from this, I'd like to bring your attention to the carapace cape, which emphasizes Benjamin's regal upbringing and ambition. The seemingly total lack of eyes and 2 sets of mouths, which are all indicative of a beast blinded by its own voracity for violence. The fact that it is always perched on Benjamin's shoulders, signaling that it aims to stand above all other GSBs, thereby making the already grand and imposing figure of the first prince even more so to all those capable of laying eyes upon it. The GSB's design to me screams hostility and supremacy. Perched atop Benjamin's imposing frame, it's as if its maw is always at the ready to bite the head off of anyone, unwilling to lower it in the presence of Prince Benjamin's absolute authority. Balsamico Might, Prince Benjamin's captain of the guard and most trusted confidant, describes it as a fine beast worthy of the next king of Kakin. He further goes on to use it as reference for determining 2 core rules of the Succession War. 1. GSBs will not directly attack other GSBs. And 2. GSBs will not directly attack the hosts of other GSBs, i.e. other princes. This, you see, because if it were the case the GSBs could attack other GSBs or other princes, a guardian spirit beast reflective of First Prince Benjamin's temperament would have already done either or both. Might is so doubtless of Benjamin's capacity for and predisposition towards violence that he actually uses it as definitive evidence to correctly deduce 2 core rules underlying the succession battle. That's wild. As mentioned earlier, we know nothing about his GSB's ability. Based on its appearance alone, I can see it doing a pito jump to bite off the top half of anyone who's met the conditions to incur its wrath. Further, taking Benjamin's disposition into account, I don't see it as having a defensive, support, or utility type of ability, but an entirely attack-oriented one. After all, Benjamin is not the type to sit on his butt and wait for his enemy to make the first move, if he can help it. He is also not one to overly rely on others or take a back seat to anyone. He is consistently promising to personally end the lives of his siblings in typical Onisan fashion. Currently, Benjamin is stuck between a rock and a hard place, but then again, so is basically everyone else. He's lost 3, almost certainly 4 of his men, with Vict most likely getting hit by Halkenberg's GSB ability, and getting his body hijacked by one of Halkenberg's followers. While he's not yet aware of it, Halkenberg's GSB ability is the perfect counter to Benjamin Baton, since he can take away Benjamin's men without killing them. This, plus the fact that his arrow seemingly cannot be blocked, makes it so that Benjamin needs to deal with the threat posed by the newly awakened 9th Prince as soon as possible. This all the while keeping a literal eye on his dear Nechan Camilla, doing his best to mitigate the danger posed by Kurapika and his Nen classes, and the fact that he on multiple occasions vowed to kill his only true brother Terror Sandwich personally, and has yet realized that he is a Nen genius with a seriously dangerous ability. This is somewhat reflected in his men as well, who have started doubting themselves, not knowing who to prioritize and how to untangle this complex web of plots, subplots, and sub-subplots Togashi's been cooking. Finally, let's discuss Benjamin's kingship potential, both how likely he is to become king and how he would reign should it occur. When things first started out, Benjamin's position in the succession war was nigh unshakable. His firstborn privilege, knowledge and mastery of Nen, military rank, with which came the tremendous benefit of his Nen-awakened personal soldiers all being counted as royal army personnel, all made it so that he was a shoo-in for the throne. However, with Kurapika leveling the field somewhat by making the presence of Nen public knowledge, and even volunteering to teach it to all those willing to learn, 4th Prince Terror Sandwich actually being an Nen genius and coming pre-wired with a potentially massively overpowered specialist ability, 9th Prince Halkenberg awakening an immensely powerful GSB ability, and so on, all make it so that the odds that were once overwhelmingly in his favor are now only whelmingly so. Don't get me wrong, he is still the most likely to win the succession war by a significant margin from a purely in-world perspective, but too many unexpected things have happened, and even more serious unknowns are looming for his victory to be considered assured. Now, how good of a ruler would King Benjamin make were he to win? While he may not be the most objective judge of character when it comes to evaluating Benjamin, Captain Might describes him as someone who, while impulsive, does end up making good decisions in the end, believing him as the only one capable of turning the still developing country of Kakin into a superpower. His experience, status, reputation, strategic mind, leadership ability, and capacity to delegate are all excellent attributes you'd very much like to have in a leader of a prospering nation, freshly brought into the V6 as a continental leader. However, I have to say that his propensity for violence, combative personality, a predisposition towards taking shortcuts, and unmatched pride all point to him becoming a despot or dictator in the first 10 years of his reign. Or maybe even 10 months. The Justice Bureau actually seems to be a relatively independent branch, serving to, among other things, put the brakes on the royal family who'd otherwise act with impunity. Barely 2 weeks into the voyage, and the threat of martial law is already very much real, with Kaiser having already taken measures to combat it. While Benjamin is willing to listen to Captain Might, and will even proactively seek out his advice, such as when he discussed the possibility of transferring Secret Window from Camilla to Halkenberg, Captain Might is a combat veteran with whom Benjamin has undoubtedly spent many years with. I don't see Benjamin having too much time or patience for civilians looking to give him advice on how to run things or curtail his ambition. I think he'd gradually get more and more annoyed at his inability to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted, and would over time erode the independence of the Justice Bureau and any other branch that would seek to curtail him and his undoubtedly warmongering ways. All I'm saying is that I definitely wouldn't like to be an able-bodied man of military age were Benjamin to take power. And that's all Benji covered. I'm planning to go over 2nd Prince Camilla and 3rd Prince Zhang Lei as well. Then if you guys are receptive to these videos, I wouldn't mind turning this into a full-blown series and covering all the princes. To briefly get back on the topic of Benjamin, how long do you think he'll actually hold out in the succession war? I honestly can't wait to see more of him and his guardian spirit beast, but I do think that quite a few guns are pointed in his direction for him to come out unscathed. Also, while I don't think he's near the top of the Nen world at all, Might himself said that the Hunter Association is significantly more familiar with Nen than they are, I do think with the right abilities at his disposal, together with the power of his GSB, he'd make a very serious opponent for even the top-tier combat-oriented Zodiacs. Two things I didn't know where to put, but I'd like to mention. One, I'm very glad Togashi decided to do away with Benjamin's face lines, or creases, or whatever they were supposed to be. Dude looked like he was straight out of a Terraformar. And two, my guy, if you can hold a weight one-handed without even shaking, lifting that thing is doing absolutely nothing for you. And with that, I'm done. I'd like to thank you very much for getting the channel to 2K subs, it genuinely means a lot. As always, thank you very much for watching, feedback is always appreciated. If you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting the channel, do consider becoming a channel member, and I'll see you in the next one.